Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. We have a brand new first look at Spider-Man Brand New Day and a breakdown of some of the big villains that are going to be in the movie, confirming some theories and a couple of big surprises. So we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos because they will be filming the movie later this year. So that's why we're starting to hear about all this stuff. The reason why we have this first look at Tom Holland's new Spider-Man and the villains that are going to be in the movie is a sizzle reel that was shown at Disney's Blockbuster Consumer Products panel in the last day. There was a dude posting to Instagram that got to attend the panel that said that he had to lock his phone in a bag so he couldn't record the actual promo itself. If anyone else out there was also at that presentation and caught some of that footage, please let me know, for reasons. Their promo reel hyping up their upcoming movies also featured footage from Avengers Doomsday, the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which are both coming out next year, along with Spider-Man Brand New Day, and other Disney movies. Disney does stuff like this all the time, so when they say consumer products, that's basically just like everything else they sell that's associated with the movie that you can like run out into stores and buy or experience and pay money for. Typically, they have to do this because that is like a many billions of dollar empire that goes way beyond the profits that they could potentially make on the movies. Like they make 10 times as much money on all the stuff associated with the movies themselves. This is why sometimes you find out about big details from movies from the toys because a lot of that stuff goes into the works years before the movie actually comes out, even if the movie itself gets delayed. Most people think that this is a shot of his brand new Spider-Man suit that he got at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, but with an old render that they just put the new suit on top of. My assumption is just keeping in pace and vibe with previous Marvel Spider-Man movies, especially Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, he will get a new suit at some point during the events of the movie. He will probably wind up helping make himself, if he doesn't completely make it himself. Part of the idea with his suit at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home is that he was going out on his own, like he was doing things on his own. So his new suit was actually made to be a combination inspired by Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man as well as Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man, with him taking out all of the Iron Man Avengers level technology from it. Going back to being a more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, more ground level. Marvel and Sony sort of soft resetting the character the same way they did in the comics after he had a big Avengers level run.
Awesome rumor. That's a great character. So that was cool to read.
Here's where we get to the reports about what's going on with the other villains, the other big characters in the movie. So there was another recent report that said Sadie Sink is actually going to be playing Mayday Parker, and she'll be the daughter of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and his Mary Jane from those movies. There were a lot of theories about this when they announced that Sadie Sink had been cast for the movie. That's been known for a while. The big question is who she was going to be playing. She was supposed to be a multiverse character, so people were just going down the list of who that could possibly be. Previously, her being Mayday Parker was actually lower on my list of possibilities just because the timeline isn't quite right for a one-to-one comparison with when the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies happened. So you have to keep in mind that his Spider-Man 4, which they never wound up making, was supposed to happen in 2011. The plot of that movie is widely known now, like they were about to ramp up into pre-production. They'd already been making costumes for the Vulture, a bunch of other characters. So like the movie itself was ready to go, like the script was ready to go. I've already done a couple big videos about that, so I'll link those below in the description if you want to learn more about what was actually going to happen during that movie. But here's the thing. During that movie, there was no mention of him ever getting married to Mary Jane, her ever getting pregnant, or having a baby, Mayday Parker. The way that Tobey Maguire explained it, when he came back for Spider-Man No Way Home, he actually asked the writers of that movie to pull way back on over-explaining what his character had been doing since the events of Spider-Man 3, just in case they ever had the chance to do another movie with him, that they could use that plot for whatever that new movie would wind up being. He implied that he had since gotten married to his Mary Jane and they had started a family together, but he had a young daughter. So a lot of people just assumed that he had had a version of Mayday Parker and she was just a young girl at the time. We saw a version of her during Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with Peter B. Parker and his Mary Jane. What'll probably happen with that is that Marvel, Kevin Feige, and Sony will just wave their hands at the whole timeline logic of it all and not really care. If you remember the 8 years later problem from Spider-Man Homecoming, like go back to the very beginning, they made a giant timeline error for that movie and they absolutely did not care about it at all. Kevin Feige joked about it after the fact, but he didn't change anything. Like it still says 8 years later if you go back and watch that movie. So that should tell you how much they care about logic like that. So if they think there's a cool twist to have, like Sadie Sink showing up as Mayday Parker, Peter's daughter from his Tobey Maguire universe. Then they'll just do that, say that she's a little bit younger than Tom Holland's Spider-Man, who's college age, so she'll be like an older teenage character.
You know what this is about.
And that'll be the end of it. But I think that we're both expecting at least Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to have some sort of role in Avengers Secret Wars. I don't expect to see them during Avengers Doomsday, though. And if she does come as Mayday Parker, maybe she would also show up during Avengers Secret Wars at some point. You can let me know who you think she's playing. Personally, I think if it winds up being a cool twist, people won't care so much about the logic of the timeline. Here's where we get to the other big villains in the movie. So people have already talked about Mr. Negative being one of like the real big characters. Steven Yeun has said that he wants to be in another Marvel movie and play a character in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Mr. Negative would be like the big go-to. People have already been creating fan art for him, and it looks great. He was actually supposed to be the original version of the Sentry, Robert Reynolds, inside the Thunderbolts movie, but had to drop out because of scheduling issues that happened with the strikes. The movie got delayed. They changed the plot a bunch. But at least at first, he was going to be the Sentry, so you kind of have to imagine that version. Supposedly, this is concept art from when he was still Sentry. I don't know if this is authentic, but it looks pretty real. Daniel Wu is rumored as one of the other frontrunners for Mr. Negative right now. Most people, when they think of Mr. Negative, though, they think of the recent Spider-Man games in the Feast Shelters plot. Basically, the idea is that Mr. Negative starts out as Peter's friend and then eventually turns evil as Mr. Negative. Like his personality completely changes when he goes into Mr. Negative form. During the Spider-Man games, the Feast Shelters were a big deal. They were created by Aunt May. They actually did a version of that with the live-action version of Aunt May. So there's a way for them to adapt that. People have been theorizing that they do Mr. Negative at some point eventually. But basically the idea is that Peter winds up fighting one of his good close friends. We'll see what they do with that in the movie. It's a pretty quick movie, so they'd have to speed run their relationship. Like you just get to spend way more time with the characters during a couple real big games. The other big villains that this person reported were in the highlight reel for Spider-Man Brand New Day are Scorpion. A lot of people wondering when we're going to see Scorpion again. The last time we saw him was in the Spider-Man Homecoming post-credit scene with Vulture before Vulture got yoinked in the Morbius post-credit scene to the Venom universe. My assumption is that Scorpion has just been chilling out in prison in New York City ever since Spider-Man Homecoming, like he didn't get yoinked to the other universe.
It's on our little spider friend?
When they first announced they were going to be doing another Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland, there were a lot of theories because of what was happening in Daredevil Born Again, with Kingpin becoming a bigger villain and him putting together a Sinister Six team because he was going to become mayor of the city. And this kind of what's happening during the events of Daredevil Born Again Season 2 right now. Hiring a bunch of questionable people to become his own private army, basically. Next big villain that was featured during the promo reel was Tombstone. This is actually be brand new inside the MCU live-action movies, but they just recently featured the character during Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I did episode videos for all of those, so I'll link those below in the description too, because it was actually a pretty great series. But it was set in a completely different universe, like it's a different origin story for the Tom Holland Spider-Man, so it's sort of like MCU adjacent, and they reference a lot of things that also happen in the MCU, but it is meant to be another universe, another timeline. Tombstone's origin in that universe was that he started out as Spider-Man's friend, Lonnie Lincoln, star quarterback, trying to get out of a bad life in the hood till he's forced to help the 110th Street Gang and eventually gets seduced by the dark side, gets his Tombstone mutate origin story, not a mutant, but a mutate because he was mutated after he'd already been born. Kind of the way that Spider-Man got his powers too, like Spider-Man is a mutate because he has biological powers and he was mutated by the spider bite. Tombstone is doused with one of Dr. Octopus's formulas on that show called Diox 3, which is also from the comics, giving him his Tombstone powers and abilities from the comics. Then he winds up taking over the 110th Street Gang, and it's implied in future seasons of the show he'll eventually be forced to fight against Spider-Man, where they wind up on opposite sides of some big event in future seasons. What'll probably happen if they do him in the MCU, it'd likely be another different origin story. The movie, like I said, is going to be really short compared to an entire season of television that they have to develop the Tombstone character, so they kind of have to speed run that. Then this person also said the promo reel featured the Boomerang character, who's actually a lesser Spider-Man villain. He appeared during the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show. Some of the other animated series have used him. He's been on a bunch of different villain teams. He was on one of the later rosters of the Sinister Six. If you dig into the character a little bit, he does read like he's a bit of a Stan Lee copy of DC's Captain Boomerang, in the way that back in the day, Marvel and DC would always do versions of the characters the other company was doing just back and forth.
I and entropy.
The other big thing that they've revealed is that the movie will basically be a prequel to Avengers Doomsday in the way that it's meant to take place before the events of Avengers Doomsday, but it's being released after Avengers Doomsday. So they're basically doing the Ant-Man and the Wasp timeline trick where things line up at the very end of the movie like they sync up. But for the most part, Ant-Man and the Wasp took place before the events of Avengers Infinity War in the snap. One of the big reasons why you didn't see Tom Holland's Spider-Man during the Avengers Doomsday Chair Watch video, because we all expect Spider-Man to be in the movie in some way, is because it sounds like Marvel had not completely worked out with Sony what he was going to be doing in the movie, like his contract wasn't completely done yet. What'll probably wind up happening, because they're going to be filming both of those movies, like filming Doomsday and filming Spider-Man Brand New Day and Secret Wars all at the same time, is it'll just be a smaller character in Avengers Doomsday, and most of the time he'll be wearing the mask, so they can just have a stand-in actor film all of his scenes, and he can just do voiceover dialogue later, and then 1 or 2 brief seconds he can take the mask off, and they can just film that anytime they want before the movie comes out. But everyone post all your reactions in the comments below. What do you think about the villains that they've named so far? It's not going to be the only characters in the movie, just the ones they featured in that promo reel they showed off the Disney products. Everybody just still wondering if we're going to see Daredevil or Kingpin during Spider-Man Brand New Day. They'll be filming everything: Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars all around the same time, so the closer we get, the less likely I think it'll be that Daredevil winds up in Spider-Man Brand New Day, but there's still a chance. What'll probably happen as we get closer to the movie coming out is we'll get more details, so of course I'll do more videos. We also just got a brand new Spider-Man Noir trailer video for live-action Nicolas Cage Spider-Man Noir, which is done by the Sony people, completely different universe. I just did a big trailer video for it, so click here for that. And click here for my brand new Fantastic Four first look at Galactus. It is crazy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.